Is the international superstar taking over the NBA, man? I mean, you look at Nikola Jokic, NBA champion, the last 5 MVPs, Jokic, Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, those 3 guys comprising of the last 5. The next draft pick, the next generational talent in Victor Wembanyama. All of the hype that came with him arriving here in the game. All of his games being covered on NBA.com for an international prospect. And this was an interesting article that came out on Front Office Sports. And the author, let me give him some credit here, put some respect on his name, Doug Greenberg, kind of went in on this, man. Said from champs to the draft, the international player, the world has taken over the NBA, man. Mo, what do you think about this, man? Has the international player taken over, man? Is it you're based in the UK, man? You're based in London.
Yes, sir.
Is it over with for us Yankees, man? Is it over with?
It's not a question. It's been over because, like you said, the last 5 MVPs. We got to look at 4 of the 5 players on the first team All NBA this season were outside of America, right? Yep. So unless you guys are including Canada, it got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So like Paolo Banchero, half Italian, who got drafted number 1 last year, Victor Wembanyama this year. So for me, it's such a complex discussion, but just the way that players are developed in Europe, for example, rather than America, which is very AAU focused, I think the European way is just so much better. Like what baffles me, the thing that really, this is how I know people don't actually watch basketball. All the criticism that Luka Doncic was getting before he was drafted, all these guys on TV, the Stephen A's and the Skip Bayless and whoever the hell they are. Oh, this kid's going to be a bust. He's unathletic. The kid was the best player in Europe at 18 years old. Victor Wembanyama, as great of a prospect as he is not the best player in Europe. Okay? Luka Doncic was the EuroLeague MVP, right? So I'm not talking potential. I'm talking about there and then at 18 years old. Not like we know Wembanyama has the potential to become one of the greatest players ever. But as it was in Luka's final season, how did they miss so badly? Or like, how was he not the clear number 1 pick?
Number 1 pick, yeah.
How was he like, okay, you don't want to put another scorer next to Devin Booker. Well, look, 4 years later, you got 2 scorers next to Devin Booker. Look how that worked out for you. So it's like, it baffles me the disrespect that players get because they're not American. So that's the first thing that I'm saying on this. I just think when you look at the players coming in, Giannis, for example, let's say Giannis, for example, he simply just outworks everyone. Who's the last time you saw an American player develop on the same career arc of Giannis Antetokounmpo? How many MVPs came into the league not as a highly touted prospect, as a skinny teenager who's just grinded his way to greatness? Because the Giannis you see today isn't the same Giannis you see. Joel Embiid, he didn't start playing basketball until what age? And yet somehow now he's become the MVP. How many times have you ever seen an American do that? Pick up a basketball at 14, 15 years old and then become an MVP 10 years later. It's like, I think the mentality of the players coming in from overseas is different. They feel like they've got something to prove. They want to work hard. All the criticism that Jokic gets for not wanting to stick around after winning the championship, well, he's done his job. This is a job for him. His family, everyone he knows, all his friends, they're back home. It's the same as when US players come and play over in Europe. Once the season's done, they just want to get back home. So the criticism that these guys get, I think, is largely unfair. And I just think that the development of players, especially coming out of Europe, is different to how they develop players now in the United States. Not saying it's better, not saying it's worse, because we have elite young talent coming out of the States as well. But, you know, they're clearly doing something in Europe. And the other factor is a lot of the American young players suffer from injuries at a lot higher rate. Maybe it's because there's more of them. It seems more prevalent. But because of the AAU circuits and the amount of games that they're playing X, Y, Z, there's a lot of injuries to the young American talent in the NBA. When you compare that to a guy like Jokic, who's Giannis, even Doncic, who are very durable guys compared to their counterparts.
I'll jump in.
I know all the this sounds like a very like immigrant dream. Like you come to America, you work hard, you do all that. Man, parents would be very proud about this moment right now.
Now, I don't know, because if I know immigrant parents, they're still going to wish their sons became doctors instead of playing in the NBA, no matter how many championships and MVPs.
Oh,
You
look,
know what I'm saying?
yeah, I get that. I get that. Look, my parents, my dad was born in Greece, my mom born in Jamaica. They're like, doctor, lawyer, you choose one of those paths. And I'm like, okay, thanks a lot. But I think for what we see for it, like the talent in the NBA right now, and it being more internationally like prevalent right now, when you look at like Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, you put Luka up there. You talk about Wemby coming to the league. I mean, look, we had Tim Duncan on the Spurs. The Spurs team, I think, was also one of the role models for having one of the most amount of international players on the team. And you saw the success that they have. And I think part of it is just the way that the game is just treated over there. It's treated more of like a team sport. So I think when they come in, it's like they understand the hierarchy. Like Jokic understands like the hierarchy of like what his role is and what he's supposed to do. Same thing with like even Luka. I think Giannis, from where he started off and just having to grow up and like, okay, I'm a role player right now. I have to learn to be what that guy is. I think that's part of it too. And I think another thing that we got to take into consideration is that when you look at these international players, it is a legit profession for them. It is a job.
Yeah.
Right. Like we look at America, you go to college, it's treated like a job, even though you were not paid for it. But you go to college and there's still about that romantic college experience that you want to have, right? You want to go enjoy yourself. You want to go have fun. I think we got to take that into consideration. When you play internationally, it's not saying that you're not doing those things growing up, but when you're clocking in, clocking out, going back home, and you have to go treat this every single day as an actual profession, I think you think of that as
Maybe
an actual job. And then you look at Luka, right? Like you're talking about 18, but he's playing with grown men, right? You play
from the age
college,
of 14.
Yeah.
He was playing men's league at 15. I've seen him playing in Madrid with the men's team at 15.
Exactly.
Rubio
So
was 14 as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. And then when you think about that, like when you're playing at such a young age with grown men, like you have to, it changes your focus, right? Because those guys probably got families. They're thinking about a whole different thing, how you finance.
It makes you tough as well. Like we were talking about how Booker got punked by the Mavs. You can't intimidate Luka Doncic. He said it. Everyone talks stuff when they're up. He's not phased one bit. You can't intimidate Nikola Jokic. He doesn't care. Say whatever. You can't intimidate Giannis. These guys are built different. The thing that I think from like a society perspective outside of basketball that I've noticed is like, if you're a great basketball player, a young basketball player in America, you're the best player in your state, you're the best player in your high school, best player, whatever. You're the guy. You're basically famous from whatever age you are. I see guys, I've seen this kid on Instagram, Mikey Williams, right?
Mikey Williams.
I don't know too much about him, but he's got more followers than half the guys in the actual league right now. So you're the guy, right?
Well, right now he's on the John Morant path right now because he just got jammed up with a gun charge, and so.
Oh, I know about it.
Yeah, that just happened recently.
But this is what I'm saying, right? Is you're a celebrity from a teenager, right? You're a celebrity, okay? You go to college, you're the guy on campus. Every girl wants to be with you. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to be your friend. You're signing autographs everywhere you go. You're the guy. You're a celebrity. You get to the NBA now, and all of a sudden, you're not the guy anymore. You're not the best player around. So adapting to that, like we were talking about DeAndre Ayton, he went from being the guy to now being a fourth option. That's a mental adjustment that I don't think is considered very often. Whereas a guy like Jokic, who's just minding his business playing basketball in Serbia, he's just playing basketball. He's not worried about being famous. He's not worried about Instagram likes. He's not worried about, all this other stuff that comes along with it. Look at Giannis. He's just grateful to be in America and feeding his family after the journey he's been through. I think the mental approach to the game is very different. But then from an actual basketball perspective, it's like, I don't know how they train kids in the States because I never got coached in the States, right? But over in Europe, I went to a camp with some Serbian coaches, right? And they have everyone training together, right? So the big men, 7-footers, are doing ball handling drills for 2 hours in the morning before the camp even starts. And then the guards are learning post-ups. So it's like you learn the complete game of basketball rather than trying to fit into this, our AAU team has to win because we're sponsored by this company. We have to win this. Or I have to get my highlights posted by Borders Life. Or I have to be the #1 ranked player in the state. It's a very different just culture around basketball.
But I think that's due to how the game has been marketed, right? Like if you look at everyone on YouTube, like we see the viewerships going down. I think part of that too is one, attention span of like the young generation. Like we got TikTok. That's like, if it's not even 90 seconds or less, right? You go on Instagram, it's not 90 seconds or less, I'm going to the next thing. And if you can't catch my attention span within the first 5 seconds, I'm scrolling to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a bunch of young kids watching like on YouTube highlights and all these highlights, Austin Rivers said it best on his podcast. If you got a mixtape made by what was it? Ball's Life. That was like, yo, you did something great. You worked really hard to get that. Now anyone could go out and create their own mixtape. They're doing the taps on the head and everything. And I think part of that is what also changes the culture, where it's like, some people are looking for the highlight moment. Like that's why you do it. I think that's part of like the AAU culture, right? Like you're looking for that highlight moment to create the reel, to keep marketing yourself, to keep getting it all the way up. That's what Zion did, right? Zion was known in high school because, this guy is huge. Look how big he is, how athletic it was. The dunks are what really was. It's not even really the complete game that we're even talking about. It's just, this guy is big. Let's see if we can go get him. Duke, he gets there. And it's like, it's box office over there. Tickets are going through the roof because of what talent he is. I think that's part of what we're seeing with this change in like in the American culture of like being just on social media, being part of like this whole instant gratification, and then wanting to be cool, as Mo talked about, right? You're a big man on campus. And that's where I was going to with college, is like, when you're hanging out with everyone like your age, 19, you say you're 18 to like 21, 22, like, it's just different, man. Playing amongst your peers is different. When you're Luka, you have to go play against a guy who's like 28, 30. That's different.
I think the other thing is as well, is like the NBA is now drafting guys that they need to develop, because no one really develops in college, because you go there for 6 months, try and stay injury free, and then you declare for the draft, right? So where are these guys learning how to be professionals from? Because teams are tanking so much now. There's barely any veterans on the roster. These guys have only had like 6 months of college coaching, and then they've come to the NBA, where nowadays NBA coaches get fired so often. You've got a new voice in the locker room all the time. Where's the veterans teaching them how to be professionals? I get it. If you join a team as a teenager and you're playing with vets, you've got nothing in common with a 35-year-old who's got to go home after the game and feed his family, right? You have nothing in common, but that might help you focus more than being on a team where it's all guys your age, and then you're going to go to the club after the game, and then you're going to do X, Y, Z. You're really seeing, there's a couple of examples when you look at Zion, when you look at Ja Morant, the lack of leadership around these guys. Where is the guy on the Pelicans telling Zion the game? I ain't going to go into that right now, but if you really know the game, you're never slipping like this.
OGs.
That's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah.
I'm not incriminating myself with any of this. Okay. I'm saying if you know the game, but who's teaching these kids the game?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Guys around.
What are you saying, Mo? What are you saying?
Well, I would say this.
You got to know how to operate.
Yeah.
No, I'm just messing with you with the last comment. You're not trying to incriminate yourself.
No,
the same with Ja Morant. Where's the vets on the Grizzlies? So these guys, Jokic and Doncic and whatever, like they've played with grown men. They know how to be a professional.
Facts.
That's why they treat it as work. They turn up for work, and then they go home. And then, do you know what these guys do? Like, fans would think they're kind of cool. These guys just love playing video games. Jokic, Doncic, Boban, and Vucevic, they just play Counter-Strike all day long. Like, if they're not training or playing, they're just playing, they're just minding their business, because they're not trying to be in the spotlight. The brands will try and push them into the spotlight, but that's not it for them. They just want to win games. They're not worried about the image of being a celebrity. But that's like, what's fascinating to me now is Wembanyama, because he's the first player coming from overseas who's had the attention of like the American guys have. Because everything what I'm saying is not a US problem and a Europe's better. No, it's not anything like that. Like, those becoming more globalized. What's it going to be like now for Wemby, who's a celebrity before he got mobbed by fans at the airport today in New York, landing in there?
Yeah.
What's it going to be like for him to now have all that pressure and to be a celebrity before he's even stepped on an NBA court? That's what's really fascinating to me. So it's not like a US problem. You're going to see this now more and more in Europe as well, because of, like you said, Alex, the internet and all these other factors. But that's what's going to be really interesting to me, is how Wemby operates when he comes into the league,
Let me I'm
Absolutely.
gonna play. Hang on 1 second. Let me play this this Kendrick Perkins clip. This is Kendrick Perkins on this debate. I'm gonna play this Kendrick Perkins clip real quick. Here it is.
Do you believe that that is a lengthy enough suspension? Is that what you expected? Did you expect more? What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's fair. I think Adam Silver was beyond fair with 25 games. I was expecting 25 to 30 games, but I'm very disappointed. In a time after we just got through watching and covering the NBA Finals, when we're supposed to be moving on to the draft, talking about Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller. Here we are over the last couple of days. We've been talking about Zion Williamson and Ja Morant. And it's very disappointing because we're looking at two box office superstars that has risen to the point where every kid around the country wants to be them. And when I look at Ja and I look at how his shoes sold out within 48 hours, and you walk in AAU arenas in AAU gyms, and all the kids got his shoes on, like he's done a disservice to them. I know he haven't committed an actual crime, but it's hurting the next generation. And I've talked about this time and time again, how Larry and Magic, how they passed the torch to Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon, and those guys passed the torch to Kobe Bryant and Shaq and Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. Here it is today. Guys are making 40 to 50 something million dollars a year, right? It's these guys' job and obligation to make sure they pass the torch and do it the right way. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the way that the league is trending, international players is the players that you should trust. If you want a franchise guy to build around, I'm trusting the international players that are coming in. You look at Jokic. We never hear anything about him outside of basketball. Think about Giannis. Nothing negative outside of basketball. Joel Embiid. Nothing negative outside of basketball. Luka Doncic. Nothing negative outside of basketball. And so when I think about what's going on right now, and everybody could give a perspective about Josh should have got more or what he's going to do, how he's going to come back. I'm disappointed on how he's represented for the culture and how he's not.
Do you believe?
All right, so that was Kendrick Perkins. So I think it's two things, right? I think Mo, you're absolutely right. Like it's not, are they taking over? They have, right? When you look at the last few MVPs, you look at Wembanyama, the NBA champions, Luka Doncic and his brilliance. A lot of that is, obviously, you can go all the way back to the Dream Team, right? When you had, for the first time, you had NBA players playing on the Olympic stage and showcasing their talents to the world stage, and the world seeing that and investing in their infrastructure. The NBA investing in a lot of international infrastructure, especially nowadays. You have Basketball Without Borders. Players like Embiid, players like Ayton came out of that program. The NBA expanding into Africa, looking for the next top talents and expanding the league there. So there's certainly been a lot of overtures in terms of broadening the appeal of the league overseas, which to me in turn has enhanced the skill sets and the development of those players. I also think the international game has slowly been adopted here in the NBA. When you look at how they've enhanced the rules to cater to the offense, more pace and space, three-point shooting, positionless basketball, like all of this has been fabrics of the international game, which allows these guys to come in and make an impact a lot quicker. Yes, Giannis was a much more raw talent, but you see where he's at right now. So I think all of that has kind of fed into it. Like the NBA now is really, a lot of the elements of the NBA are part of the international game. When you look at even 7 seconds or less, the D'Antoni game, the D'Antoni ball, how he's been able to maintain a job in this league. Like a lot of that is from the international game. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's the other way around though, because when Luka came out and said it's easier to score in the NBA than it is in Europe, everyone laughed. Laurie Markkinen came out and said the same thing, right? In Europe, typically, just to generalize it, you're playing against teams who have two bigs. They're allowed to be around the basket a lot more with the zone defenses and the lack of 3 seconds, whatnot. So in the Europe, when you're attacking at the basket, you've got 2 7-footers. In the NBA, everyone is playing small ball like we've discussed, or you've got one big on the court. And in the NBA, everyone just switches automatically. It's like, how often do you actually see a good screen being set in the NBA and someone actually fighting through it? right?
Yeah.
As soon as a player, this is the one thing that annoys me. As soon as a player walks up to even look like he's hitting a screen, the defense just switches automatically. So there you go. Your big man's out of paint. So of course, when Luka comes into the league, he's going to say it's easy to score because the rules are making the NBA easy to score because the NBA as a product needs more points, more highlights, more clips, more fans, more merchandise, more revenue, right? So like, I think the rule book kind of side of things is making it easier for the international players because it's been tougher for them to score than it is. That's why like Luka's numbers in Europe don't translate to his numbers in the NBA because the NBA is a lot faster paced, a lot more possessions and whatnot. So that's the way I see it in terms of the rule book of the ability to score the basketball.
Yeah. Now,
Interesting.
I would say from Perk's perspective, you know, with the Zion and the Ja situation, I think a lot of it is culturally. It's just different, right? The international player, like Wemby is changing the game, but but from here,
the reason.
well, hang on. From
No, go ahead.
At this point, right? I'm saying before the whole Wemby thing, right? If you look at how the game is covered, you look at overtime, you look at Ball is Life, and all these guys that want to make highlight reels for the AAU players, and once they get on that highlight reel, they've made it. And you look at how the AAU circuit works, and these kids playing multiple games a day, nobody really focusing on fundamentals. A lot of that has been lost. And as you said, Bo, like a lot of these guys don't have time to really develop their game because they're just getting shuffled from game to game, level to level, and then it's on to the NBA. And so a lot of their game is missing. But that's on the court. But I also think culturally, it's just everybody wants that lifestyle, man. It's a lifestyle.
The reason I made that face, I think it's like you're absolutely right in what you're saying, but I can't blame these guys. You're a teenager with unlimited money. What else you can do, right? My thing is this. It was never a problem before in the NBA. Why not? Because of the way rosters were constructed. When you talk to any former NBA player, they will always tell you about the vet that took them under their wing as a rookie and throughout the early stage of their career, taught them how to be a professional, took them out to buy some suits and, you know, taught them other stuff like about being a professional in the spotlight. Like, I'm just looking at the rosters of the Pelicans and the Grizzlies because we're talking about Ja and we're talking about Zion. Who are the guys that are mentoring them on their team? That's the fault is with the rosters that are constructed. Everyone's just clearing out the thing, tanking for draft picks. We're going to have all these young guys, see which ones can become stars, and then we'll keep them. But what they're missing is, okay, who's teaching these guys to be professionals? You know, look at that Memphis roster. Steven Adams isn't even from America, and he's their oldest player. He's from New Zealand.
Yeah, he's their he's their OG.
Who is the guy in Memphis telling Ja Morant, I was a lottery pick too. I know what you've been through. I know what the pressure's like. I know what it's like to get a big contract as a rookie extension. Who's telling him that, though? Who's actually helping him? Because when you're that young, when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, even up to 23, right? You're not fully developed as an adult. You know, I look back at stuff that I did when I was that young, and I'm like, why did I do that? And I'm sure you guys are the same way, right? Who's there in the locker room as their teammate saying, hey, yo, young G, come, I'm going to show you how to handle business correctly. And you can't be doing this. You know, no phones in the crib. If anyone's coming to the crib, we put that in a Ziploc bag and we put that in the safe. You know, like, it's just stuff like that that lead to all these off-court issues that no one's teaching them how to operate because they're just moving the same way that's all you know. You know, you just do what you know.
And I think, Mo, to your point, like you talk about, you look at the Grizzlies, you look at the Pelicans, you can even throw the Rockets in there and you see all these young guys. And even look, Eric Gordon didn't want to be on the Rockets anymore. He was like, yo, get me out of here, please, for the love of God. And I think when you start giving young guys the responsibility that you are the guy at such a young age, and you know, you can put on the old man hat at this point, but like, I had to earn it the hard way, right? Like, in order for me to get those touches, in order for me to get that playing time, in order for me to be somebody in this league, I had to put in the effort. And you have someone like Ja Morant, and granted, talented as soon as he got in here, rightfully so, should have been the starter as soon as he got to Memphis. Same thing with Zion. Talented, rightfully so, should be a starter as soon as he got there. But when you look at that and you're saying, okay, we're going to make these guys the faces of our franchise. These guys are then elevated to say, I have a lot of power. I make the decision now. I am the superstar. So I want things my way, or I don't want to be here. And I think once you give in like that as a front office, you've now lost all of your power to say, okay, this is how we discipline, this is how we reprimand, this is how we're going to build this team. And now you got to think to the fact of like, how do we keep this guy happy? How do we keep this guy want to be here? And this is where everyone's like, well, the small market team never gets anybody. It's like, well, you could still lose somebody if you just allow them to go down this deep path, like you're seeing for Zion, like you're seeing for Ja. And you know what? Maybe it could even be for someone like a Jalen Green on the Rockets, right? Where you're like, did we really look out for the guy in their best interest? But the thing is, like, they're not supposed to be the parent. They're not supposed to be the role model. You're supposed to have the vet to be that role model. And I think when you're a team that's looking to tank and consistently get all these young guys, and then it's the blind leading the blind, this is where you get situations like this is like, hey, man, I get it. I would be doing the same thing too at 22. Hey, man, I'd be doing like this is where it's like you go to college, and what we just had the conversation about the international players, right? Where it's like Luka's playing with guys who are 28 and 30. It's like, yo, I'm going home. My wife's making me dinner. I got a family to take care of. I got bills to pay. I can't be out here doing nonsense like this because they rely on me. When you're at this age, when you go through college, it's like, it's cool. It's fun. I'm constantly in the limelight. Everyone wants to hang out with me. Everywhere I go, someone wants to take a photo with me. You know, you got bars that are letting me in, even though I'm underage for whatever, just because who I am. And I feel like once you're in that mindset, and if you're a team that just enables that mindset, then you create this position where it's like, now what do the Pelicans do? Now they're looking to move off of Zion because it's just been, he doesn't want to be here. He's now has so much power than us. Like, now we have to figure out how we're going to rebuild this team. Whether if you had someone like, maybe it's like Jordan, right? You look at Jordan, how he was on the Bulls, and we watched the Last Dance documentary and how he had to earn it, how he had to come up. And it's like the coach is like, oh, this guy's a really good player. We should utilize him. And even though he still had to go through all of his lumps, right, to figure it out, like maybe it's a situation like that we need to see kind of go back. And you look at RJ and like the situation.
But also like Jordan, how many years did Jordan spend in college?
Yeah. He spent many years in college.
That's the thing. Like the whole landscape.
Who was coaching him?
The whole landscape has changed.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just a different generation. Like the distractions have been amplified. The stakes have been higher. It's just, guys, it's just less concentration on craft. And like I said, a lot has to do with lifestyle and culture, man. It's a lot of distractions out there.
The money is so crazy now that the thing that weirds me out is like this AAU stuff. You've got like adults circle them like vultures, whether they're from a brand, whether they're from scouts or colleges, whatever it is, to try and get their claws into them early because everyone wants a piece of pie at the end, right? So it's like the people who are around you now as a young player, you say you sign a max rookie extension, right? You got $200 million coming in. Okay, cool. Are your friends really going to tell you what you need to hear, or are they going to tell you whatever it takes for you to keep them around? Like Ja Morant is the perfect example of this. We could blame Ja Morant, but if your friends were really your friends, would they let you put yourself in that situation ever? If you were truly his friend, if you felt like you need to be rolling around in possession of whatever you're in possession of, if you were really his friend, you'd say, hey, listen, let me hold that for you. I'm in the car with you, but I'm going to hold that. If we get pulled over, whatever, I got it. Surely that's what you do as a good friend. Or are you surrounded by people who just want a piece of the spotlight and a piece of the limelight and saying, yeah, do your thing. Do your thing. You know what? Yeah, let's go into the club after this. And yeah. I'll take a picture for you. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is for me.
I mean, man was driving going IG live. Like we're not even having that conversation where it's like he is driving and like using his phone at the same time. We're not even having that conversation, which is like another, what are we doing here?
Who do you guys think, because LeBron's on his way out, right? A couple more years, LeBron is out of here. And I hope people have been able to appreciate what he's given to the game, because after that, I'm not sure. Who do they brand the game after? I don't think
RJ Barrett, baby.
They're not going to make Yo.
Do you know who I like? Be the face of the talking about Americans, though.
Yeah. Who do you think? Who do you think?
I like Anthony Edwards.
I was just going to say that.
Ant-Man is a killer.
There it is.
And everyone hated on Ant-Man when he was like, yo, I could be in the NFL. I could be a rapper.
Yeah.
Listen, this kid has supreme confidence. He delivers on both ends of the basketball court. If he stays out of trouble, that's the guy. I mean, you got Tatum. he's very wholesome. You know, he spends time with his kid, just goes out there, plays. He's quite a quiet guy. I like Ant-Man if you're talking about the US players, but really it's like Giannis.
I think it's
and
Giannis,
then maybe Wemby if he can deliver on expectations.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like nobody, LeBron is obviously the face of the league, right? But after LeBron, it's Steph Curry. But nobody for the first few years of Steph Curry's career could have ever predicted that Steph Curry would become who Steph Curry is.
It's true.
So there may be a player that none of us even thinking about that can elevate their game or get into the right situation to a different team that can elevate their game. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be number one pick coming out and it's got to be Zion Williams. It could just be someone else. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I don't see anyone who has like the mystique of a LeBron, Kobe, or Jordan.
Nah,
you know,
I don't
because
see it.
now we just have too much access into these players' lives.
That's
right. The other thing. This Ja Morant stuff, this Zion Williamson stuff. If this was 20 years ago before the internet, that girl that's talking about Zion 101 times a day on her Twitter account, she would have nowhere to say this. What are you going to do? Go onto the road and just shout about it?
Right.
How are you going to tell people this?
Yeah.
There's no internet for you to tell people this. Ja Morant, the same thing. There's no camera phones back then. You're never going to get caught. So it's like the technology has made it to the point now where A, you have all these problems, but B, also, you have too much of an insight almost into these guys' lives.
Yeah.
So it's like Michael Jordan was like a mystery. You'd read about him in the paper, you'd see him on the tape. Like internationally, you'd get a VHS of the Bulls like a week after the game, right? Whereas now it's just like everyone knows everyone's business.
Everyone knows everything, man.
That's not exclusive to the NBA. I think that's music, that's football, NFL, whatever it is, everywhere.
Well, well, it's to create that brand, right? We talk about, you know, for the NBA, this is great for them because like, oh, look, you get to know more about our players. That means it's more of a, you know, a deeper connection between you and the league, right? Because why else, as Perk talked about, everyone goes out and buy the Ja ones, right? As they come out or whatever the name of the shoe is. And it's like, you see that and it's like, oh, well, I'm not just supporting that, right? And like when we talk about, I'm not just supporting the person, I'm supporting the brand as well. It's like when you go think about Michael Jordan, the mystique that goes to it, but the brand that he had was that he's a killer, he's a winner, everything. And so like when Nike got him, it was like, why are you going out to go get Jordans? You want to be just like Mike because you want to be that winner. You want to be that killer, right? And so I think when you have all the social media stuff and you're creating your own personal brand right now, you know, it's more than that. So I think for the league, they like that. Who's going to give you that mystique that we're all talking about? Right, it's probably Jokic. But we're talking about any player, but it's also
Jokic won't be the face of the league, bro. Jokic will never.
No, I'm just saying, if you want that mystique, though, if you want the mystique, if you want,
but it's not a mystique.
It's not a mystique.
He plays video games and ride horses. Like we know what he's doing.
He just doesn't do anything.
Do we know everything though? Do we know?
But my thing is this, right? My thing is this: is the symptom of a bigger problem, which is like another discussion. We go for 2 hours, so we'll get into it. But the NBA has done such a good job in marketing their players that now fans root for players instead of teams.
Yeah. Especially this younger generation. That's Gen Z.
When we were growing up, you rooted for your team, right? You support the Knicks. You root for whatever player is on the Knicks. If they leave, you hate them and you like the new guy. Now, fans will support. I know people, even my friends. They've got Cleveland LeBron jerseys. They've got Miami LeBron jerseys. They've got Lakers LeBron jerseys. I've got friends who've got Houston James Harden jerseys. They've got Brooklyn James Harden jerseys. They've got Philly James Harden. They support the player. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But that is also part of the culture of now you see that trickling down to people support like the Ja Morants or whatever. Instead of just supporting the team, they support the players.
Support the players, man. I'm with you. I think Ant-Man has a chance. You know, 21, 22 years old. Once he requests his trade from out of Minnesota, that's a straight up loserville. You got to get out of there like KG, man. You elevate your brand. You got to get out of there. So once he figures that out and blows up the bridge in a couple of years, you see A-Rod is playing it right. You know, he's trying to court him. He's taking him to Miami. He's trying to show him the games. Who knows what they did afterwards. A-Rod's trying to cultivate that relationship early so that Ant-Man, once he blows up and becomes probably top 3 in the league, you know, he's not ready to get out of there. But I think Ant-Man has a chance. Tatum is close. Last year, if he would have captured that chip, I thought he would have gotten a lot closer. He's right there on the cusp. You know, clean image.
Even this year, if you don't twist his ankle and they win Game 7.
There you go. And I thought Boston would have been a little bit better matchup than the Heat against Nuggets. Not saying it would have won.
That 51 against Philly, that's superstar performance.
There you go.
Like, it's all well and good being a superstar, Like everyone expects Zion to be the face of the league. He's played and he's been dominant when he's played, but he's not had games like that.
Yeah.
He's not had playoff runs like that. So it's like, but he's already got his 250 million. I ain't mad at him. I'm happy for him. But it's like, you're paying people now based off potential, not off results.
And
So
I think that goes.
you got to
with,
let the game do the talking at the end of the day. The game is the star.
And I think that adds on to like, you know, and Mo, you kind of touched on it. Like everyone has like everyone has their brand shoe at this point. Like we got the PGs, you got the Jaws, you got the Zions right behind
Devin
you.
Booker's
Like,
getting a shoe.
Like everyone gets a shoe at this
Trying to wear
point.
Devin Booker's shoe.
Like at this point, it's just, when is it too much to say, can't we just let somebody earn that type of thing? Like I get the whole money grab that you touched on earlier. It's like everyone's got to get in. We all got to figure out how we're gonna. That's just become the NBA culture at this point. Like we look forward to the draft. Like who's that next person? Who's going to be the next guy to dominate the league? It's not even like we're thinking about who's currently in the league. It's like, cool, Giannis, Jokic. We're already thinking Wemby. Jokic just won the championship. Wemby's going to be the next guy. We're just preparing to crown.
And when his career doesn't get off to, when he's not putting up 25 points a game to begin his career, they're going to kill him on social media and in the news and on TV.
Yeah.
They set these guys up.
They set them up to build them down, to break them
The bigger
down.
they put you up, the quicker they're going to pull you down.
Yeah.
Like, you
Easy.
see it over and over again.
Easy peasy. Somebody said Spider in the chat. Can Spider take that mantle? Maybe when he comes to the Knicks in 2 years. Maybe when he comes to the Knicks.
Be serious.
Why, Mo? I want to hear this.
Donovan Mitchell ain't going to be the face in the league. To be the face of the league, you got to be a top 3 player in the league. When's Donovan Mitchell going to become a top 3 player in the NBA?
It's fair.
Point guard, undersized at his position. He plays the 2, but he should really be a 1. And you say he comes to the Knicks. Okay, where's Brunson going to go then? I can't see the Donovan Mitchell thing.
It's between Ant-Man and Tatum right now. I think Giannis will take it naturally once LeBron's out of there. I think Giannis will be the natural de facto leader of the league, right? And then I think once Ant-Man continues to grow his game, I think it'll be him, man.
And it's also like there was a point where Derrick Rose looked like he'd be the next face of the league. But there's so much that goes into it, like injuries and trades and all that kind of stuff, that there's no guarantees in any of it.
Yeah.